So you're finishing up your first full term, of course, you know, the extra year you had because of the death of Sheriff Lane Cribb. So why do you want another 4 years?
It's promises made, promises kept. We've had a very successful first term, and I want to continue that success for the citizens of Georgetown County.
No, promises kept. You know, if you can give us an example or two of things you said back then that you
absolutely. When I was sworn in as sheriff in 2020 for my first full term, we promised lower crime rates. We've achieved that. We promised lower or higher crime clearance rates. We've done that. We do that through hard work. We do that through our hiring process and hiring the right people to carry a badge and represent the sheriff's office. We do higher crime clearance rates through technology that we've been able to implement throughout the county as far as certain camera systems that's helped us solve crimes. I promise to do more as far as arrest or fighting the drug wars. We've doubled our narcotics unit. We've increased exponentially our number of drug arrests in the county. We've taken bad guns off the street. We've taken bad guys off the street. We've added canines. We have 4 canines now, where before we only had 1. That is a fantastic tool for our narcotics officers. It's a fantastic tool for just our regular patrol officers in ridding our streets of drugs, which also rids our streets of bad people and guns and everything else they use to commit their crimes.
Now, when you say the drug war, do you still focus much on marijuana as much as you used to?
It's what we're worried about now. It doesn't matter what your politics are. Mm-hmm. There is drugs flowing in like a fire hose over the border. This illicit fentanyl. It is killing people. You don't have to, unless you've lived in a cave over the last 4 years, to not know that fentanyl is pretty much in everything now.
Do all of your officers carry Narcan with them now?
Absolutely.
Yeah. You have to administer it quite often?
Yes.
And that's it. And the sad thing is, what's even a sadder fact is you have to administer it to some of the same people quite often.
Yes.
How frustrating does that get?
It's not. That's what we're trained to do. It is not our job to decide whether or not someone lives or dies. It is to use every tool we can to provide public safety services to the community. And providing Narcan to someone in need is one of those services.
Mm-hmm. Now, you mentioned the crime rate. Georgetown has its fair share of crime, but it's a lot of it's property crime and things like that, theft, things like that. We do not have a high level of murders, rapes, things like that, thank goodness, even though our neighbors to the north and south seem to have, quite a bit more than we do. So why is that? Why is our violent crime rate not matching what we see to our north and south?
Well, it's because we have a great sheriff's office, and that we're working hard every day to combat that. I do wish it was that easy. Yes, we do have a great sheriff's office, and we do have great employees that are working hard for the men and women every day. But I think it's just a mix of that professional police services and just the type people that luckily are moving into Georgetown County. Yes, we're very transient. All one has to do is drive up and down 17 and see all the cars daily, 12 months out of the year now. There is no slow time, but they're here pretty much to have it. They're either passing through or they're here to have a good time. They're not here to commit too many crimes on the transient population that we do have.
Now, if you're the victim of a burglary, you'll think there's a high crime rate.
Absolutely.
Because you're the victim. So I'm not discounting what we have. What are we doing to fight those crimes? Because burglaries and things like that, we do have. I don't know if it's even our fair share. It might be even more than our fair share.
Well, number one is just to have a relationship with the community, that they call us when they see something that just doesn't seem right, or they see somebody simply riding through their neighborhood on a bicycle at a weird time, just kind of scoping things out, someone they've never seen before, or someone driving through or riding through. It doesn't matter, or knocking on doors. We've had calls recently of a certain gentleman dressed in a sponsored logoed golf shirt. He no more works for that company than I do, but people are calling, and he has now moved on to Horry County and doesn't come back to Georgetown County. But those community relationships, our fast response, our consistent response, our professional response, and just ensuring that we try to make as many charges as we can in these property crimes, because some of these people are repeat criminals. It's not the boogeyman coming in from wherever. A lot of these are repeat folks. Just look at our booking photos on these property crimes. A lot of them are the same repeat folks for whatever reason, whatever their situation is. And we just try to be consistent in our response and take every case seriously. Because if something was stolen from my house, I want the officer responding to, number one, just be very engaged in what my issues are and do everything they can to solve them. So I get it.
Now, one thing that's kept your officers busy over the past few months and maybe even years is threats at schools. And is there really an uptick in the number of threats at schools, or are there more press releases being released about those incidents than used to be?
That's another example of promises made, promises kept. 4 years ago, I promised the citizens of Georgetown that, number one, I was going to keep our children safe and ensure that we have programs in place to do that. And then I also promised that we were going to have a transparent sheriff's office. And how those fit hand in hand with your question is, we lobbied hard. Sheriffs lobbied hard with Governor McMaster to put school resource officers in every school in South Carolina. We've done that here in Georgetown. It has provided a fantastic service. It is a great, just a networking opportunity with these children, with these educators, and I feel it has made them safer. The transparency part of the equation comes into our news reporting or our social media reporting. I am not going to not report on incidents that occur in the schools. I think that is a public safety issue that needs to be up in front, in the forefront for everyone to see, so they have a good dose of reality what's happening with our young people today.
But do you think if you would have had the PIO that you have now that puts out the press releases like he does 20 years ago or 10 years ago, would we have seen as many press releases? Were there as many incidents, or have they increased?
I don't think it's that easy. I think what has changed, at least in my administration, is the fact that we take every one of these complaints serious. There are not many afternoons or many weeks that go by that we're not in some student's house after school hours investigating a threat or an alleged crime and trying to get some kind of good, find some kind of good outcome before the bell rings the next morning. So we know that child is either, that threat is either found or unfounded, that child is moved out of the way, or that child's back at school and the educators and the school district can do their job that they do a great job of doing, and that's educating our children. Mm-hmm.
Now, I mentioned that our violent crime rate is kind of low here in Georgetown County compared, but we have had our incidents, and one of those has been the, I don't know if benchmark is the word or what, but of your administration so far, and that's the Raymond Moody, Brittany Drexel case that threw Georgetown County in the spotlight nationwide, worldwide, because of that. What was it like living through that as a sheriff?
Just very proud of our partnerships. Another promise that was made 4 years ago was to have better partnerships with our federal agencies, such as the FBI, that assisted in the Brittany Drexel case. The most important issue with that case was bringing some kind of closure to the family. We really felt, based on our experiences, that she was no longer with us. So it was our job to find out what happened and recover her and return her to her family, and that was accomplished.
Mm-hmm. And was there any lessons learned from that that you took or your department took that helped you has helped you since then?
I think overall, over the 12 plus year period, I think it showed all of law enforcement that was involved in that case to stay on task. Don't leave a suspect unvetted and move to something else. And I think we've learned that. Let's fully vet that individual or individuals before we move on to something else.
Well, I hope you never have to live through something like that again in Georgetown County. Thank God they're few and far between. Let me ask you about the budget, and part of your budget, a big part of your budget, is now the new jail that's being built on Browns Ferry Road. Why did we need a new jail, first of all?
The jail that we are currently in is up to Department of Correction standards in South Carolina. We are inspected by Department of Corrections yearly, and whenever they feel like they need to come in and answer a complaint or look at anything. So we are fully compliant. But it is not in great shape. We spend millions of dollars a year just trying to keep Band-Aids on it. And I feel that it's also not as safe to work in due to that environment for my employees. So we need a safer environment for the people that I have care, custody, and control over, which are the inmates, and then also for my employees that are in there providing those very important services every day.
I mean, can you give some specifics about what's wrong with it?
Again, we comply with standards, but obviously we have faulty issues dealing with the infrastructure like water pipes, wiring. Everything was built substandard when it was built originally.
But if it's not replaced, are we in danger of inmates being able to escape from the one that they ran down? Are there issues that make it more easily?
Absolutely not as far as escape, but as far as providing the reasonable basic services that we need to provide, such as water, electricity, and other safety issues, yes.
Okay. Now the new jail, it's got a price tag of what, $60-something million. Is that, some people ask, why is it so expensive?
And again, we went through the county administrator and myself, this has been going on for 2.5 years. This conversation and the planning part of it, it took us that long to get where we are today to even get to a price for completion of the project. And that's just what today's costs are. If it had been done however many, 6-7 years ago, it would have been around 25 million. But who knew that then?
COVID changed things.
Absolutely.
As far as prices, I mean, we see that with homes too. I mean, the price of homes today compared to what they were built for.
Yeah, our cost of services go up just like the price of groceries or anybody's cost at home.
Now, as far as the upcoming budget, the county council is going to be looking at that soon for the 25-26 year. Are you going to need more money than than the current budget?
Well, again, a promises made, promises kept situation. When I ran 4 years ago, I promised we'd have more deputies on the road. We do. I also promised, though, that I would work better with council on funding resolutions that best help the public. We've done that. If it wasn't for council, I wouldn't have the 8 additional deputies that are working on the road. I would not have competitive pay rates that we do now have to reduce or increase retention and reduce people leaving and going to somewhere like Horry County to work. So I'm very proud of those efforts. Again, I work well with council. They get it, and that it serves the citizens well when those things happen.
Now, when you see the growth in the county, you can look and see how many new houses were built. You can go to the county office and they can tell you, how many building permits they have, but you don't know how many people is going to be in each house that's being built. So how do you plan for that? When you have to look at the number of deputies we need, when you don't know how many people are actually moving in.
That is something, you asked the question about the new budget and what do you forecast me working on or doing, and that is one of the things that I will tell you now is there needs to be a formula put in place for this sheriff and future sheriffs that what constitutes a new deputy. Is it through building permits? We know the census is not 100% accurate or reliable. It says we have 66 to 67,000 people in the county. Well, every study that we've done, we've got about 90,000 people here every night with heads and beds. And then you've got the transient population on top of that, and then you've got seasonal population on top of that. So some days we're dealing with a population of about 130,000 people here in Georgetown County. So what populates a deputy? I think that's something that I need to sit down with council and we figure out. We have measures in place on when to replace a car or when to replace a tractor or when to replace a computer. But there is nothing in place on when to add essential personnel. And that is something we have to come up with.
So do you plan to do that during this upcoming budget process?
Absolutely. And that'll be an ongoing discussion. I don't see that having some finite answer within a few months, but I see us making progress on, what clicks into hiring a new deputy, so we don't get in the situation we found ourselves in last year, where you have a sheriff face to face with council arguing points that everybody knows is accurate and everybody knows exist. Council was in a bad position, and I respect that. And they have a lot of things they have to deal with, but the right thing happened.
Now, you'll have at least 2 new council members starting in January that you've never had to work with before. So what's going to be your plans to get to know them and let them know what you need?
Everybody has public safety issues. If they're running for county council, they have the ear of their community. Their community is telling them whether they have a crime issue or a fear of crime issue. That is where I step in to reduce both. Not just reduce crime, but reduce the fear of crime. And so council members, whether they're new or old, that is the basic foundation of any member of council that comes in to that position. And that'll carry them throughout their entire tenure.
Now, we talk about the promises kept between 2020 and 2024. Are there any things that you said that you wanted to do back in 2020 that hasn't been accomplished?
We've been very lucky. I promised a professional police agency. We were just nationally accredited through CLIA. That was back this summer. I promised increased traffic enforcement. We have 2 dedicated state-funded traffic officers, and that's all they do, along with our patrol deputies when they're not answering calls for service. I think we just need to continue on that track of sound, productive police services and being done by a sheriff who's responsive to the people and who is out there and who has the ability and the experience to make a difference, a positive difference.
So you made promises in 2020. Are you ready to make promises for the next 4 years?
Well, again, it's just increasing our ability to provide professional service. And we have to do that through deputies on the road. We have to do that with retaining the people that we have. We have to do that through certain technological means. We have to do that through sound leadership. And I provide that.
Yeah. Well, last thing I want to ask you about is you have been very successful in another area that people might not know about, and that's raising money. You've got like $168,000 in your campaign fund. How did that happen? Are you running for governor?
No, I mean, people have been very generous. We have not raised a lot of money this time around. Mm-hmm. We've just very much been relying on just hitting the street and asking people for their vote. And that's part of what this interview is today, is me asking those listening or watching for your vote as Sheriff of Georgetown County.
A lot of that money is carryover from 2020, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So you can carry it over to 2028, but if you do decide you don't want to run again in 2028, what happens to that money?
There's laws that pertain to where that money can go.
Isn't it like a charity or something?
Yeah, you can go to nonprofits and whatnot, or some of it can go back to the state coffers, but none goes to the candidate.
Right. I knew that. I wasn't saying that.
No, but I'm just saying.
I knew
but a lot of people don't know that.
I knew there was some kind of mechanism in place.
Yeah.
I just couldn't remember.
We're not like some of our federal partners.
Yeah. Do you get to choose the charity, or does the state?
Yes, I can choose the charity.
But are you going to say now that you'll need it in 2028?
Absolutely. That's why I mentioned earlier, November 6th, I'll be asking. Okay. I'll be politicking on November 6th.
Before he passed away, Lane Cribb would do that. I mean, in like 1996, I would ask him, are you going to run again in 2000? And he would say, well, in 2000, 2004, and 2008. And, that was always his answer. Yeah, I'm going to, as long as I'm alive, I'm going to run.
He was my great friend, and he was another promises made, promises kept person. He made a promise that he was going to run until he wasn't here anymore, and that's what he did.
But you're not going to commit to that long, I guess. So you're not here anymore.
I'm committing to when I can make a positive difference for the citizens who put me in office.
Okay. Well, finally, we'll worry about 2028 in a few years. Let's talk about this time. Why should people vote for you on October 21st or any time between then and November 5th?
Yeah, early voting starts October 21st, which is Monday, and it runs through November 5th. It is very important because it matters who your sheriff is. Please, I am asking for your vote for Sheriff Carter Weaver, Sheriff of Georgetown County. I am trusted, I'm tested, I'm experienced, and I have shown that I can provide professional police services for you, your family, and those that visit this great county.